Hello, welcome to our very special Kidscreen Awards Inclusivity Roundtable. And we're going to have a very interesting conversation with a great panel of a few of our jurors for our very first Best Inclusivity Kidscreen Award. And we know that who the winners are. They were announced yesterday. So we're very happy to be able to talk and provide a little bit more insight into, how our jurors the shortlists for these awards, and we'll talk about the winners and the shortlists and some of the more notable entrants as well that didn't quite make it, but were very good in the area of best inclusivity. So for the chat today, I would like to welcome our jurors. We have Shabnam Rezai, who is the co-founder and president of Big Bad Boo Studios and OzNoz. And Shabnam was one of our teens and tweens jurors. Hi, Shabnam.
Jeremy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Also, we have Teresa Helmer, and she is the executive director of integrated content strategy and development at Disney Channel. Thank you, Teresa, for being here. We really appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Hi. And also, we have Kay Benbow. She's a children's media content specialist and a former controller at CBeebies in the UK. Hi, Kay. Thanks for being here.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And finally, we have Matt Kaplowitz, President of Chief Creative Officer at New York-based accessibility enterprise Bridge Multimedia. Thank you, Matt. Nice to see you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
So
nice to be here.
Again, thank you so much for helping us make the selection for the Best Inclusivity Awards. The first time we've had this award for the Kidscreen Awards, which is fantastic. And I wanted to maybe talk about the preschool demographic first. And basically, I'll just sort of say who the winners in the shortlist were. For Best Inclusivity, Bookmarks Celebrating Black Voices from Netflix was the winner. And the other two in the shortlist were Love is Love from Hopster Studios in the UK and Picnic Animation Studio. And that's a short film. And the other shortlist was Pablo, the animated autistic-focused kids series from Paper Owl Films. So I guess we'll talk to Kay and Matt first. First off, you can talk about either one first, the winner or the shortlist. But what sort of made you pick those ones? What stood out for those entrants in Best Inclusivity? Kay, do you want to go first?
I mean, it was very difficult to even get it down to 3, and Matt will correct me, but I think we probably would have had 4 on the shortlist if we'd been allowed, maybe even 5. But I think it's just really important to see so many programs now being much more inclusive and diverse across the piece, and it's long overdue. And all 3 on the shortlist did something unique. I mean, obviously you've mentioned the winner, but for example, Love is Love, I thought was a very bold channel statement, and it was beautifully inclusive, distinctive looking, and quite quirky and funny, so absolutely appealed to the young audience and it's accessible to them. Pablo, obviously I know well because it was on CBeebies. And it just does something wonderful for the autistic community, and is so much appreciated by them. And it's good to see that the show has gone from strength to strength.
Just for anyone that's going to be watching this that isn't as familiar with some of these titles, Love is Love is a music video short film designed for preschoolers that celebrates love and the diversity of families. And it's set on Pride Day, and the film sort of applauds diversity and portrays a vibrant march where families of all shapes and sizes march together and sing. It explains to them that they might have one mother or one father, same-sex parents, or might be looked after by their grandparents, but it is love that counts and really brings them all together. Pablo, of course, is a groundbreaking preschool show that puts the traits of autism on screen, inspiring understanding and celebrating all kinds of minds. And in terms of bookmarks celebrating Black voices, it's a live action collection of 12 5-minute episodes featuring prominent Black celebrities and artists reading children's books from Black authors that highlight the Black experience. And they're all fantastic. So Matt, do you want to comment, just follow up with Kay on those selections and what stood out for you?
What stood out about celebrating Black voices was it was bold. It was a really bold look at the subject, and it was beautifully done. I mean, everything about it was beautiful, but it was bold, and Love is Love was bold. And Pablo, Pablo's our old friend. We know Pablo, we love Pablo, and Pablo in a gentler way is bold too, almost by how unassuming Pablo and the characters and the whole feeling of the show, starting with the music. It's bold in a quiet way. And I think what really got everyone on the jury about celebrating Black voices was it was unusual. It was sort of remarkable that there was the intent of it seemed to all of us to be, let's really tell this story and let's tell it in a way that is going to be engaging, but let's not change the power, or in some cases the horror, the terror of what was happening in this story. And when we're talking about diversity and inclusion and equity, that particular episode took a long needed approach to it, and we were all just knocked over by it.
Yeah, and that was the episode they submitted was with Lupita.
Yeah.
And also good to note that show is hosted by, I think, Marley Diaz, who's the author and founder of #1000 Black Girls book campaign, and she's just a kid. I think she's 15. Am I right? She's very young, which is fantastic.
If I can just add, I think it was the clarity, the simplicity that gave it such power, and Lupita, particularly in this episode, it was like she did what all the best storytellers do. She speaks as if she's talking to one person, but it was such an authentic voice and came from the heart, and you just it was just so powerful.
Now, Teresa and Shabnam, are you familiar with those shows? Just want to get you into the conversation. Feel free to. I know you probably seen Love is Love and are familiar with those other shows. Anything you want to comment on those ones?
Yeah, I particularly love Pablo. I think having these types of neurodiverse and characters that are on a spectrum in shows is so important and powerful for parents, especially of children who may be on the spectrum. But like Kay was saying, it's very challenging to find a winner, because these days so many shows are coming up with new stories that haven't been told. So I know one of the things we look for are is exactly that, new stories that haven't been told, and that makes an entry really stand out, which is, I think, why they ended up picking the winner, celebrating Black voices, because it was telling stories that we hadn't seen before, and the audience is hungry for that.
Right.
So.
Teresa, would you like to comment on some of those shows, projects?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I think a lot about is the importance of being able to tell stories at the level where that age group is in. So at the preschool age, there's a way to tell very compelling and impactful and real stories without making it feel like, oh, we have to kind of tiptoe around, you know, serious issues, especially issues that tend to affect underrepresented groups more significantly. And I just am, you know, I love all of the selections that were made, and I can see that the team had a really tough decisions to make, but I just feel like it's really important that you know, we're creating, like, the community, not we, like that's the four of us, but like we're creating content that really is able to reach this demographic and really start the conversations early and provide, you know, like that age appropriate experience. So that's the only thing that I wanted to add. Yeah,
yeah, and some of the other preschool projects that were mentioned as being quite good were Play School from ABC Kids in Australia. I think JoJo and Grand from BBC Children's came up. Disney Junior's Mira Royal Detective, Stories with Sound Effects, which is from Colombia. Dino Dana from Sinking Ship in Toronto, and It's My Party from TVO Kids and BGM. Matt or Kay, any of those sort of, you know, really strike a sort of chord with you, thinking about them again and maybe why they didn't quite get there, but were really good?
Oh, it's I mean, again, it was really hard to get it down to 3 for the shortlist. I mean, I thought what was really lovely about JoJo and Gran were the live action sequences where you heard from real kids, and so you'd got the experience that JoJo was going through, but also the experience that real kids were experiencing, and I think that certainly added to the power. And it's a very joyful series. I think it looks beautiful, and it's just really engaging, and that lovely relationship between a child and grandparent. I really love it.
You know, continuing on what Kay's saying, the relationship in Stories and Sound Effects between the child and his father was so powerful. And when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion and disability within that, you know, there's the one thing to go looking for, speaking on the disability part, looking for the specific disability, but there's that other part of it where some of these episodes took it in the broader sense. It's almost where we want them to evolve to, where it's not just, oh, look, there's a crowd and look at all the diversity in the crowd, but look what's actually happening, like in the just looking back at my notes, Esme and Roy, you know, the way the racial diversity is fit into it, it's very, it's just a natural story. It's not, it wasn't a significant part of it. And It's My Party and Fraggle Rock, these also, it was just there. And I believe that that's what we would all like our world to look like. So there was many of them that just, it was just part of it.
And if I can add to that, I feel that's so true, Matt, which is that, like, we're doing this, and this whole effort of diversity and inclusiveness is about getting to a point where those elements are there, and we as an audience can say, it's there. And so what's next? What's your story? We want to get to know you as a character. We want to hear your story. And it's wonderful that the inclusive is there, but it's not something that necessarily is affecting the story or is standing out in a special way. We want to get to know you. We want to hear about your story.
Thanks, Shabnam. That's an important point in terms of how you're sort of looking at the criteria to really evaluate the shows and what will be the long-lasting effect or impact of the show on the kids' audience, on the production companies that are making them, the writers, the broadcasters and streamers that are picking these shows up, and really looking at diversity behind the camera, in front of the camera, which really creates a true authentic show. So thank you for bringing that up. And I guess we'll just sort of switch gears a little to the kids demographic. And for Best Inclusivity in Kids, the winner Ollie from WGBH and Atomic Cartoons. The two shortlisted were Family Reunion from Netflix, that's a live action, and First Day from Epic Films, Kojo Entertainment, ABC Australia, Screen Australia, South Australian Film Corporation, Australian Children's Television Foundation. So pretty much every Australian funding organization broadcaster was on board with First Day, which is great. But Molly of Denali is a great show, and it was the winner. So Teresa, can you talk a little bit about that show and the shortlisted ones as well? How you came to those decisions?
We didn't come to the decision easily. It actually took us 2 meetings to finally kind of come together and make a decision, because we were really struggling as a collective to really figure out who or what project we were going to choose. But Molly of Denali we selected as the winner because we felt that from the overall on-screen representation from the characters, not only being underrepresented within an Indigenous Native Alaskan community, from the collaboration with the production with elders of that community, we just really felt that there was something it was just a very robust offering, I guess you could say, when it comes to DEI, because not only did you have the representation on screen, you had the intentionality of engaging and having like a reciprocal conversation. It wasn't just like, come be a brain dump for the production, and then thank you very much, we're going to do our show. It was very much, how can we partner with this community to ensure that the richness of the culture is articulated in this program? And so that was how we ended up choosing Molly of Denali. And it was just one of those, for me personally, I felt like within the first, 3 minutes of the episode, I was like, okay, this is really what it's all about. So it was, for me, it really evoked that feeling immediately. And then just going through the other projects, and it's funny, I think we sort of touched upon it on the preschool section, but they're all so powerful and impactful, but in very different ways. So take Family Reunion, for example. What I liked about it is it reminded me of people's families from back home. I'm from Northeast Tennessee myself, so it just felt like very much a real family with real dynamics and showcasing Blackness in a non-traumatic and non-stereo. There weren't really any stereotypes that I felt were, there weren't really any stereotypes that you would typically associate with a lot of Black focused content. And it was just fun, it felt very, like there were a lot of different entry points for an audience. Like for me, like I'm, not the target audience, but I was like, oh, this is fun. And, I think that was something that the whole group was really drawn to. And then in terms of first day, I mean, this was one that we talked about for a long time, and we just felt like it was, I mean, of course, heart-wrenching was one of the things that kept coming up, but the way that it just showed the support of the young protagonist, and how she really had what is the word I'm trying to think of? Unconditional support and love from her family throughout the process of going into the school, and with her, you know, as her identity had evolved to her current identity, and her chosen, you know, her identity.
Yeah.
And I think that it felt like something that, I mean, you see it, I guess, but it didn't really feel like, again, with the age-appropriate manifestation of difficult topics that you hear a lot about, but you don't really see it in practice. And I thought that what was really special about this project was that it just showcased, you know, a truly unconditionally supportive family, siblings who were also supportive, you know, just working through a very real experience. And it was something that, you know, we felt really represented, you know, the inclusion that we aim to see in a more broad sense within the industry. So those were, in a, you know, just quickly to summarize, that was where we landed in the kids space. And then some of the other ones that were listed, I know Babysitters Club also address a whole host of different topics throughout the series, and felt that there were a lot of different things to choose from, but very seamlessly woven in throughout the episodes, from, you know, understanding one's culture and heritage, to also going through like what is it? I'm sorry, I'm like totally, I haven't had coffee yet. I'm like, where?
It's okay.
Like going through, you know, it's not a mixed family, but it's when you have a blended family. Oh my gosh, a blended family, and like what that experience is like, going through different disabilities or other conditions that, you know, invisible illnesses, if you will, that you may not know what they are, and how to support your friends. So like there's so many different aspects of that. And then also we talked about Shira and the Princesses of Power, The Bravest Knight, and the notion of, or the showcasing of adoption, and like how that kind of manifests itself. So lots of different really great examples. And I think someone else mentioned it earlier, like we're in a place where we're not just having to choose, like kind of like squint our eye and lean back and see if we can find the inclusion. It's like there's so many options to choose from, and we were really, you know, felt very fortunate to be part of this process. So yeah,
that's wonderful. Just again, just so people that might not be aware, First Day focuses on a transgender girl on her first year of high school. And Family Reunion is about a family from Seattle that moves to Georgia, big city, to a smaller location to be closer to an extended family. And Molly Denali, of course, the first nationally distributed children's show to star an Indigenous lead. And Shabnam, your show Bravest Knight was mentioned. Of course, you couldn't be a juror for that one, obviously, but that's a great series. And by the way, happy belated birthday! I meant to mention that right off the top.
Thank you. On both counts, Bravest Knight and my birthday.
So thank you, Teresa. Those are really great comments. Anyone else want to comment if you're familiar with any of those shows or watched those, Kay or Matt or Shabnam?
I just want to say I love Molly of Denali. It's such a great show. I've seen panels at Kidscreen and other conferences with the behind the scenes cast and crew. They've really made a tremendous effort in bringing on cultural advisors who understand the regional indigenous stories, and have worked that through almost every episode. There are elements of indigenous culture that are so educational and fun, and I love it. I'm really proud of the people who put it together. I think they've done a fantastic job, so I'm really happy they won.
Yeah, and just a note about that show, I believe more than 60 Alaska Native collaborators filled key roles in production, writing, voiceover, and the live action talent and the music, as well as the cultural and language consultation that you mentioned, Shabnam. So that's a great thing.
You know, Jeremy, I was actually going to call out the music on that. And you know, it's one of these things that's not the secondary part of DEI, and there's besides the music in Molly from Denali, the music in Mira Royal Detective, which is set in India. It was just fabulous the way the music was done. I mean, a lot of care and effort went into that, and children don't even know that's what they're hearing, but that's such an important part of inclusion. And then, of course, going back to celebrating Black voices again, the book is called Sulwe, and the music there is just extraordinary. And in all cases, this is part of the diversity and inclusion conversation.
Thank you, Matt. So we'll look at the tween teen category. And for that one, the winner was The Unlisted from Aquarius Films and ABC Australia. The two shortlisteds were About Sex by Echo Media and CBC Gem in Canada, and Find Me in Paris, the third season, that's from Cottonwood Media and ZDF Enterprises and the Opéra National de Paris. So some great choices there. And Shabnam, you were the tweens, one of the tweens teens jurors. So thank you for that. Also, unfortunately, the other jurors couldn't make it, but we had David Levine was the other kids juror with Teresa, and Taylor K. Shaw from Black Women Animate was the other kids juror. Also on the preschool side, Kevin Clark from Netflix, he couldn't make it today. And Shadi, I think, was with you, Shabnam, on the tweens teens. And who am I forgetting? Sorry, I've got a lot of notes here.
There were a lot of people making these decisions, which was good because there was a long list of people.
Yeah, so I apologize. I apologize if I left anyone out. But yeah, on the tweens teen side, in terms of the unlisted, what sort of drew you to that, Shabnam?
Yeah, so our category, like the others, was a very difficult category. The selection was just incredible. The mentions there were Central Park from Apple TV, High School Musical, the series from Disney, Ashley Garcia, Genius and Love from Netflix, and also Netflix's Julie and the Phantoms. The Unlisted, which was from Aquarius Films, ABC Australia, really stood out for us because it was just fundamentally hitting on all the different notes that we were looking for. The show is about 12-year-old identical twins, Drew and Cal, who discover that the government is secretly tracking and manipulating Australia's youth via electronic tracking devices. Right. So the premise itself was like exciting, kind of investigative, set a group of kids that go out and look for this potential government organization that's tracking the youth. What was incredible about the show was the identical twins, first of all, were incredible actors, Cal and Drew. They were of Indian heritage. And so when you go into their home, you see like the grandmother who's like cooking curry in the back, and you really felt like you entered an Indian home. my husband is Indian, so I felt like my mother-in-law was there when I was watching it, and it just felt really authentic, and just the way they talked to each other, the terms of endearment used. So the writing was amazing. And then outside of the home, you know, the investigative team, the youth that they kind of get together. We look, you know, when we look at things like diversity, inclusion, some of the key categories that we look for, and we discussed this all as jurors before we started this process, we look at things like gender, so gender balance, race, size and shape of the characters, cultural background, socioeconomic status, age, language, family structure, disability, neurodiversity. And then beyond that, we look for really good storylines, really deep characters, and just authentic, not just in front of the camera, but also behind the scenes. So we went to great extents of like looking up the writers and looking up the cast and crew to make sure, like in case of animation, that it was matching the voices, and that in case of live action, you know, who are the people who are writing these stories. For us, you know, a lot of the ones that we mentioned, we'd seen them before, like High School Musical. That's one that's been around for a while now. And so there was also an element of like what's new and what's different this time. A show like Find Me in Paris, beautiful show done by Cottonwood Media. I've seen it many times, I love it. It's season 3 of the show. So I believe last year at MIPCOM, they had won an award, and it's very inclusive, very diverse. But again, for us, it was also about giving the newcomers a chance to shine. The series about sex, which is a Echo Media CBC gem, was a fantastic series that talked about sex and sexual relations when it comes to, you know, the teenage years, when you're coming of age and you have these really important questions that need to be answered in an open and transparent environment. Again, another great series. But for us, I think D&I is best done, as Matt said earlier, when it's infused into the storyline. It isn't necessarily the storyline, but it's just the fabric of it. And that is what The Unlisted did so well.
That's great. Carol Reed also was your juror, your other juror member,
yes,
in the
Carl
scenes from Line Forge. Apologize to Carl.
That's right. I was like, we're forgetting someone.
He's gonna
I'm
send
glad
me
you
a
looked
bad
that up. Yeah. Yeah, and Kevin, of course. Yeah.
That's right. Does anyone else want to comment on some of those key things that Shabnam mentioned in terms of you know, what sets one project maybe apart from another project in terms of D&I? Or if you know The Unlisted, Matt, Kay, Teresa, or some, obviously High School Musical, it's been around for a bit. Julie and the Phantoms, I think, was another one. It's a newer Netflix show.
Yeah, Julie and the Phantoms is a great show. My kids were watching it, and it's got a great cast, great storylines. You know, not Julie, but sometimes some of the when you're kind of grading and going through as a juror, you're going through this. Sometimes you get the feeling that a big studio might take an old format of something that worked. Let's say, I'm going to bring up an old show like iCarly, right? A famous show that works with a white cast, and they just change the white cast to a Latina cast or a Black cast. And there's nothing new. It's kind of like the same sitcom or the same series, but they've just colorized it. And that, I think, is when I have to sort of take a step back and be like, you know, it's nice. They're trying to, you know, include more actors and a more diverse cast, so to say. But, you know, I think for all of us as production companies and broadcasters, we need to really make that effort to bring out the authentic storytelling and change everything from the inside out, meaning from the writing stage forward.
Yeah.
I have to also say that you know, as we are very careful with all of these things, and we're all learning as producers,
Yes.
you know, what is the right thing and what is the wrong thing. I will also say that we did The Bravest Night, as you mentioned earlier, and it's a fantasy world that Daniel Arico, our writer, has created about a young girl who wants to become a brave knight like her father. This story takes place in a fairy world, and we meet fairy tale villains and fairy tale, you know, heroes. We were criticized for the fact that Daniel wrote the series and he's a white male. But the series is a fairy tale. It's about Grunt, the purple troll. It's about Cedric, the knight, and then subsequent to that, Nia, their daughter. So I think while we all have good intentions, it's also important not to be too critical of, you know, a writer who wants to go out and write fairy tales. To be policing, you know, someone like Daniel to say, well, you're not allowed to write these fantasy stories. I would hate for us to dampen our creative abilities by rules that we're creating. At the same time, I'm a huge champion of diversity and inclusion. I hope that makes sense.
That does make sense. We have a few more minutes. Does anyone want to offer a little bit of advice for any producers that will be watching this, or writers or broadcasters, or anyone in the talent department that will be checking this conversation out? Any advice for people that are maybe in the middle of writing or developing and producing a show and are, you know, looking into diversity and inclusion in terms of the story or the production? Any advice for them, you know, looking to really be mindful of that going forward? Okay, Teresa, Matt.
One thing that I would say is that there were several of the entries that we looked at where there were missed opportunities for inclusion. And I don't want to call out any shows by name because, you know, it's so easy after the fact. So
Right.
it's really not important. But there was a story that involved a lot, for example, children reading books. But none of the children reading books had any reading disabilities. There was no one. Everyone was sort of an equal reader. There weren't any of the children with autism or dyslexia or any of the, more than the largest portion of people with children with disabilities are reading disabilities and language related disabilities, not physical disabilities. And just taking that to a slightly larger lens, it's whenever there are these groups, just to look for that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
You know, just
yeah, there are those moments in a story where you may think as a writer, you know, the kids are reading books, so they read the books, but you move on quickly to the next story beat, or you don't look at that deeper. That's a great point to bring up, Matt.
And isn't it great that it's a racially diverse group that's reading the books together? But some are better readers than others, you know.
That's true. That's true. Any final thoughts, Teresa, on you know, being a juror for this and the projects that excited you and the winners, and advice for people, you know, continuing on with they want, you know, a project to last and really affect people?
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice would just be to hire inclusively at the earliest stages of development and production, because I don't know, studies show that when you have people from diverse backgrounds and positions of decision-making ability, you know, the inclusivity and the diversity of thought and content comes with it. So just think about those areas, those key areas where decisions are being made, or the genesis of stories are, and hire for the types of stories that you want to be told.
Indeed. Okay, you're nodding your head. Everyone's nodding their head.
You've just,
Obviously.
Teresa's just summed it up so eloquently. I think it is. It's about having diversity and inclusion across the whole production, and that means your production team, you know, the people that you don't see on screen. I think that's really, really important, that their voices are part of the production as well.
Indeed, indeed. And we're seeing broadcasters get on the strategy of no diversity, no commission. So, you know, people are really, you know, making those actionable strategies, you know, putting them out there and putting them in action, which is interesting. Shabnam, any final thoughts before we go?
I think Teresa nailed it. Hire the right people and go out there and make beautiful content.
Indeed, indeed. Well, listen, thank you so much, everyone, for being jurors for Kidscreen's first Best Inclusivity Awards. And thank you to all of our other jurors that could make the chat today. We're really looking forward to seeing, you know, what all of you are going to be working on in the future, and what other great content is going to come out for kids and kids and their families, you know, this year and ongoing. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone. It's great to see your
Thanks,
faces
Jeremy.
and chat.
Thanks,
I really
Jeremy.
appreciate it. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.